G'day, this is the 5-minute podcast review for November 7, 2018. Got two quick podcasts to tell you about in this episode. First up is Getting Curious with Jonathan Van Ness. Maybe you know it, maybe you don't, or maybe you know of Jonathan Van Ness but didn't know he had a podcast. Jonathan Van Ness really came to mainstream awareness early this year with the launch of the Netflix series Queer Eye, a 2018 reboot of the original Queer Eye for the Straight Guy from 2003. Jonathan is one of the hosts of the Netflix Queer Eye 2018 reboot, but he's been producing and hosting his podcast, Getting Curious with Jonathan Van Ness, since 2015, and he's been putting out episodes ever since, at least one a week for the past year. The concept's pretty simple. Basically, each episode, Jonathan takes on a subject he's curious about and pulls in a relevant expert to explain it. And the subjects Jonathan is curious about vary wildly, from asking what's the difference between Sunni and Shia Muslims through to how did Kim Kardashian break the internet. He calls most of his guests honey, and he refers to a lot of things as gorgeous, but don't think for a second that means the discussions are lightweight or frivolous. Have a listen to these excerpts from an episode called Is Saudi Arabia Cute Now? It's with Middle Eastern expert Professor James Gelvin. The interview opens with Jonathan Van Ness making a reference to MBS, that's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia. And this interview is from May, which was 5 months before Ahmed Khashoggi was murdered in the Saudi Arabian consulate in Turkey.
So what's going on with him? I heard he's diversifying. He's getting them into Hollywood and stuff. We have movies in Saudi Arabia now.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be caught up too much in this. I mean, remember the last person who was the hero, the great reformer? That was Bashar al-Assad. And we're facing a similar sort of thing right now that, you know, the promotion's there and he's coming and he's making this charm tour and what have you. He goes to Hollywood. He goes to Silicon Valley. He meets all these people. They're charmed by him. My God, he's just like a regular guy. He's like the Jared Kushner of Saudi Arabia. And then what's going to happen is that it's going to hit the fan.
So that was pretty prophetic. And a bit later in the discussion, there was this.
I really hate to say MBS because it really normalizes him.
Oh, yeah. We'll call him...
No,
we're not going to make a Voldemort cute name for him. Yes, Mohammed bin Salman.
Salman, right.
Yes.
Okay, so that's Getting Curious with Jonathan Van Ness, one of those podcasts where it's worth scanning the episode list. There's around 80 episodes up at the moment and picking off the topics that catch your interest. But definitely a good entry episode is the one I just played the clips from, the May 30th episode called Is Saudi Arabia Cute Now? I've put a link to the main podcast feed and that specific episode on your screen. Next up, an interesting new podcast out of the UK called Multi-Story. Multi-Story handpicks audio stories, typically personal stories, from the BBC Regional Radio Network, with each story based around a weekly theme. The producer and host, Becca Briers, introduces and weaves the stories, usually 3 stories together, to create something like a UK version of This American Life with its themed 3-act structure. So you could almost call Multi-Story This British Life. As I said, the stories are drawn from a collection of 39 local regional radio stations across the UK, and this is a big part of what makes Multi-Story work so well, though it also means being exposed to a range of accents and dialects that'll put the speech processing part of your brain into overdrive. Here's one example. This is a clip from the first episode themed around No Place Like Home. One of the stories involved a Lincolnshire farmer called Farmer Wink, who had barely left Lincolnshire in his life and had never been on a train. That is, until a BBC Radio Lincolnshire presenter suggested a day trip to London.
So here we are, Lincoln Central Station. It's quite busy actually, a lot of commuters just arriving to get the early trains out of here. And look who's here, Farmer Wink. How are you doing?
I like that, are you?
Now this, even being here, we're standing on the platform, even being here, that's a first for you.
It is a first. Never been to a train station in my life.
Why? Wow, how come you've got to the age you are and you've never ever been on a train?
I don't know. I've never wanted to go on a train. I never knew where to go on a train.
There's a whole world out there, Wink.
Oh, there's a whole world of them, isn't there?
Well, no, and this is what we've been saying. We've been saying basically, you have left Lincolnshire in the past, but most of your life is near where you live.
That's about all. Go to Louth, cattle market at Louth. About Louth, about my further list I've been, hey.
This will be the fastest you've ever travelled, I think, won't it?
I should say so. Hey, about 30 mile an hour is about my limit.
Okay, so I warned you about the accent, but it's a great story and it's part of the first episode of Multi-Story around the theme of home. Multi-Story drops weekly, each episode running around 30 minutes, based around a different theme, and it's a good one to subscribe to, especially if you're up for broadening your podcast listening horizons. I get a lot of email from people asking for good non-US podcast recommendations, so if that's you, give Multi-Story a try. Okay, that's it. A reminder, we looked at Getting Curious with Jonathan Van Ness, which is from the US, and then crossed the Atlantic to check out Multi-Story. Links to both are on your screen, so is my email address, so feel free to get in touch and let me know about any podcasts you're listening to, particularly any great undiscovered podcasts we should all know about. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening.